These strange and flamboyant creatures are cephalopods, a diverse group of animals that includes squid, octopus, and cuttlefish. Close relatives of primitive invertebrates such as snails, cephalopods are far more than just simple slugs. They have highly developed brains, superb vision, and tentacles with powerful suctioning discs. But their most remarkable trait is their ability to communicate. With complex visual signals and posturing, some cephalopods appear to speak to each other. Each summer, a dedicated group of scientists converge on Bonaire, a tiny island in the southern Caribbean Sea. Theirs is a revolutionary quest to discover if common reef squid are capable of language. In the final frantic weeks of their short lives, reef squid appear to read and write distinct messages on their shimmering skin. These foot-long mollusks, like humans, are thought to employ a creative, symbolic, and visual language. It is difficult to imagine creatures more alien and unlike humans. Cephalopods have blue blood, 3 hearts, and use jet propulsion to navigate through the sea. Theirs is the most advanced nervous system of any invertebrate. They are wily magicians of the deep, the octopuses, cuttlefish, and squid. Tentacles are basically arms without bones. These dexterous limbs are utilized for mobility, exploration, or capturing prey. The rest of a cephalopod's body is made up of a muscular sac called a mantle, which contains their 3 hearts, brain, and other internal organs. Cephalopod in Latin literally means head-footed. Octopus, squid, and cuttlefish belong to the phylum Mollusca, a group of soft-bodied animals that includes clams and snails. Unlike many of their simpler relatives, cephalopods have lost their external shells through the millennia of evolution. 400 million years ago, their armored ancestors ruled the seas. These were the ammonites, and the oceans once teemed with them. but evolution seems to have passed them by. Only the primitive nautilus, a living fossil, has retained a protective outer shell. We don't know how ammonites became extinct or why most cephalopods evolved without protective shells. What we do know is that these animals can exhibit an astonishing repertoire of behaviors. They appear to be smart.
The evolutionary answer to why octopuses and squid are more intelligent than other invertebrates is probably because while they are derived from mollusks, they have evolved away from using the molluscan shell. A good, big, solid shell is a great place to hide in. And if you're hiding all the time, you don't have to think. As soon as you get out from the shell, you are what some people have described as bait. Anything can get you, anything is interested in getting you, and you don't have any built-in protection. Probably not the only way, but an excellent way to get around the problem of not having any protection anymore is to have smarts. The background of these guys is pretty simple. Squid are cephalopods. That means they're mollusks, but they're really unusual mollusks. They don't.
Dr. Jennifer Mather is a professor of psychology at the University of Lethbridge in Alberta.
It's a very short lifespan. So they go from this big hatched to this big doing mating games in less than a year and a half.
The crystalline waters of the Dutch Antilles are a long way from the prairies of Western Canada.
Up to the surface.
Caribbean reef squid are perplexing subjects, considering Mather's primary field of study is human psychology. Her master's thesis dealt with a small species of octopus, while her doctorate examined the eye movements of schizophrenics, an unlikely pairing of research topics. Each summer, along with an enthusiastic team of scientists, Dr. Mather travels to Bonaire and its splendid coral reefs. Her ambition is revolutionary: to learn if Octopuses sepioidea, a common species of reef squid, is capable of the most highly evolved of behaviors: language. American Martin Moynihan was the first biologist to present the controversial theory that reef squid might use visual language. But he passed away before proving his theory. Mather's mission: to prove Moynihan right.
There's two reasons I chose the Caribbean reef squid for this long-term project. The first one is a really simple one. Martin Moynihan in the early 1980s said that he believed that the squid might make a visual language on their skin. Now this is a really big idea. Humans have language, and clearly monkeys have the ability to make a reasonable, primitive type of human language. If this were a third language in the animal kingdom, this would be big news. This is a really big question to tackle. Let me see if I can go and crack this particular nut. People often ask me, why are you in a psychology department studying octopuses and squid? Why do you go running off to the reef and watch animals? Does that really have anything to do with humans? And the answer is yes, it does have something to do with humans.
Oh, great fun.
The area that I'm really interested in is what has been described as comparative cognition. And that's trying to understand how thinking works by looking at thinking in animals other than humans. Now, a lot of people do it by saying, okay, well, we'll look at how monkeys think. What I'm looking at is really something quite different. What I'm saying is, okay, let's take the most intelligent invertebrate, because the octopuses and squid are way ahead of the other invertebrates. They have to have developed intelligence quite differently.
In the azure waters of the southern Caribbean Sea lies a tiny island renowned as an environmental success story, Bonaire. This idyllic outpost's marine sanctuary is recognized as a world leader in coral reef conservation. The entire undersea ecosystem surrounding the island is protected as a national park of the Netherlands Antilles. Jennifer Mather visited several other Caribbean destinations before choosing Bonaire as a base of operations for her research. The squid are conveniently accessible from shore and are spared the destructive effects of commercial fishing and pollution.
When you decide you want to work with an animal in the field, you have to solve a lot of practical problems before you can go work with them. Researchers go to all sorts of strange places to do work. And some of them go half an hour's hike through the bush, and some of them go up to the mountains, and some of them go out in the open ocean in big research vessels. And we wanted something that would be relatively simple. We wanted to be able to go from the shore. We wanted to go to a place where we could find the animals. We wanted to go to a place, too, where animals would be safe.
We have to get up early and work hard at a time when people like James are semi-conscious, because that's when the animals are active, and that's what we came to study.
I'm a morning person myself, so it's no problem, but some of these others are kind of hard to get up out of bed.
I'm basically nocturnal like octopuses are, if left to my own. But in the morning they are all coming back together and sorting things out again. So we're here. We need to be here. That's when all the activity is. A lot of it anyway.
Mather is joined in the expedition by an eclectic group of researchers. Roland Anderson is the Puget Sound curator of the Seattle Aquarium. Ulrike Griebel is a cognitive and evolutionary researcher from the University of Vienna. She is accompanied by graduate student Ruth Ann Byrne.
I saw a spermatophore.
The final member of the team is James Wood of the National Resource Center for Cephalopods in Galveston, Texas.
I'm very fascinated with cephalopods. Well, first of all, they're invertebrates, so they're related to things that don't have brains, and some of them don't even have heads. Yet, they're a group that behaviorally is more similar to something like a fish than to a snail. They can change color, shape, and texture better than anything else on the planet. I mean, you might think of a chameleon, but chameleons use hormones, and that has to go through the blood system, and then it takes a few seconds. These animals, this is all neurally controlled, so they think it, and they're that. So they can change what they look like many times in 1 second.
I got involved in the reef squid study here through Dr. Jennifer Mather, who is the team leader of this project. She and I met at a conference back in 1986, and we've been friends and colleagues ever since. A few years ago, she asked me if I'd like to come down here and help her study the reef squid. I jumped at the chance.
I'm seeing new stuff every year. I'm coming here now for the 4th year, and I always see new patterns, new combinations of patterns, new behaviors. I think that they need this complex signal language because they are social. As soon as animals are social and live in groups, they need to communicate. This is also the driving force for intelligence, also in mammals. The most intelligent mammals are found among the social mammals. And the same is happening here in the cephalopods.
The group's fieldwork is quietly fascinating, but requires patience. Their research demands hours of snorkeling in unobtrusive observation. Individual animals are identified by distinctive scars and skin patterns, and each behavior is recorded for later analysis. Caribbean reef squid are not the species favored by chefs and seafood fans. They are slightly larger and darker in appearance than the restaurant variety. Journalists have branded Mather the Jane Goodall of calamari.
We noticed personalities in these animals, and we found that there were dramatic differences between individuals such that you could describe them in terms of human personalities or perhaps human temperament. It's almost impossible not to think of them in terms of the human roles. That's why we use this flirting at the bar. That's why we talk about going all the way, making it. From time to time, we talk about it as a soap opera because we have all the characters, we have all the situations that you could possibly have in a soap opera.
The squid practice a daily routine as timeless as the coral reefs themselves. At night, they disperse to hunt alone. Each day at dawn, small groups of animals gather at precisely the same spot. Early morning is the time for mating games, and this is when things get interesting. They gather together for a few hours of greetings, jousting, courting, and of course, sex. Foreplay may last for hours, but the mating act itself is, suffice to say, quick.
Probably the most important behavior that these squid do when they're gathered in these daytime groups is their reproductive behavior. As they come together, females are the first ones to let everybody know they're interested. What we notice is that the females rise above the group. They go pale on all of their mantle except just a strip around the front margin, which is kind of a warm brown. When we saw that one, we decided to call it saddle because it looked as if the brown was a saddle around the animal, almost like it was waiting for a rider. When someone is doing something interesting in return, it's probably a male doing stripe. That seems to be the first exchange of visual signals indicating interest in mating in the future. When he's really interested in doing a mating, he'll do a display called a flicker. We call it the flicker because it's on-off, pale dark, pale dark, pale dark. It's so fast that in fact we haven't been able to dissect it and find out how often or to find out whether it's all the body at once. But when he does that, it seems to be a fairly honest signal of intent to mate, if she lets him. If a male squid in a school flickers, they have the equivalent of what I say, all hell breaks loose. It's a clear signal that everything's going to happen. Squid are going to zoom all over the school. Other squid are going to come in and try to interfere with it. And if the squid are lucky, they're starting the next generation. The other thing that happens when a male flickers is that it alerts other males to the fact there's an interesting situation coming in here. So they'll do a challenge. They'll do a challenge with the zebra display and coming up beside perhaps some special postures. Often, in order to do anything about having the opportunity to mate, he has to fight off the interfering other males.
After 4 years of study, the scientists have concluded that reef squid exhibit approximately 20 distinctive displays, many of which revolve around reproduction. Each of these displays may involve hundreds of individual components, and there are perhaps thousands of subtle variations. Specialized cells in cephalopod skin called chromatophores contain pigment-filled sacs. Additional layers of cells, iridophores and leucophores, differentially reflect and alter the appearance of incoming light. The three groups of cells work together to form the startling color and pattern changes exhibited by these animals.
Next week, I think we're going to have to do an all-day watch on one group and sort of start at dawn and have relays of people coming in, watch for an hour, get out, watch for an hour, get out.
Do you think that she didn't want him to mate her? I mean, do you think that's why she was doing the zebra?
Well, she did the zebra right at him. So, and she kept the distance, too. I mean, she wasn't with him. She was 2 or 3 feet.
Once back at their research headquarters, the team analyzes each morning's observations.
I counted 17 today.
Individual files cover a wide range of behaviors, including flickers, saddles, and zebra displays. The squid provide the researchers with an endless amount of information and behaviors that must be quantified, sorted, and assigned grades of intensity.
Anytime you see that green or blue, the pinkish color too,
Yeah.
that's iridophores. Yeah, it's a really neat system. It's not studied. The various displays can be sort of quantified and sort of assigned numbers depending on the intensity, whether it was on a quarter of the animal or half the animal or all the animal. For example, the zebra display, the arms can be together, which is kind of a low intensity thing where they can be completely spread out, which is more of a high intensity. The zebra display can be on only half the animal, so that can be quantified. We just have an incredible amount of information that we get from these animals. Reef squid are very good at communication. Whatever they're doing is obviously very complex and has a lot of different components.
Oh, hello. It's a
Basic
female.
brown.
Which one?
Most observations of the squid are made while snorkeling, which has its limitations.
Let's see, this is a nice saddle stripe.
With the luxury of a camera team recording them and their subjects, the researchers had a rare opportunity to view their charges up close.
And notice there's a fin-based stripe on the under guy.
Both of them have.
Both of them have.
You can see the internal organs there too.
Now she's doing zebra on the left arm. Can we go back on that a bit? See, look at that lower spread and the upper spread.
Boom. It's really interesting during the day how they're often this basic brown color, which really stands out against the white background. But in the early morning and at night, they're often light colored like this, which is much more camouflaged.
Now see, when they're maneuvering, they've both got zebra on white, and it's only after they settle for over.
Photographing the tiny reef squid and their mating behavior proved to be a difficult task. The skittish animals, however, eventually became comfortable, even oblivious to the presence of the divers. Cinematographer Neil McDaniel captured images of behaviors of which little is known. Egg-laying is the final act of a frantic and all too short life.
When a female's laying eggs, it's really, of course, the culmination of reproduction, and it's a very interesting situation in these animals. Now, biologists talk about this a lot. Who is it who controls who gets their genes in the gene pool? And in the case of the Caribbean reef squid, it looks as if the female has an awful lot of control. Because, of course, when a male does the flicker and he transfers the spermatophores to her, it's her choice whether or not to take them and put them inside her mantle cavity. And then, since she's stored the sperm, it's her choice about when to fertilize the eggs with which sperm. Both males and females will die after reproduction. And it's a very short lifespan. We talk about them as having a motto of live fast, die young.
An attending male guards the female throughout egg-laying. He tries to mate with her right before and even during the process to give his seed an advantage over that of his rivals. After carefully selecting a coral ledge with suitable protection from the elements and predators, the female lays up to 50 strings or fingers of eggs.
She squeezes down underneath the rock and she deposits an egg string on the rock. Then she comes back out again. It looks as if she takes a deep breath and goes, that one was hard. And then another 5 minutes later, on average, she'll do another egg string. They start out life as eggs. There's no parental care whatsoever, and the male contributes nothing except sperm.
In only a few short weeks, the eggs hatch and tiny squidlets venture into the water column. From birth, each is prepared to assume the role of marine hunter. Yet they too must run a gauntlet of predators to reach maturity. In the cold waters of British Columbia, the world's largest octopus appears to have little need for the complex visual signaling used by reef squid. The giant Pacific octopus lives a mostly solitary life, and its reproductive strategy is quite different. Like reef squid, females accept sperm sacs from males to fertilize their eggs. But instead of abandoning her brood, she stays behind to tend the nest in a very motherly fashion.
Before she uses the sperm to fertilize her eggs, she seals off a den Produces 57,000 eggs, glues them in strings to the top of her den, and then grooms them for 6 or 6.5 months until they're ready to hatch. During the entire period that the female's there, she does not leave, nor does she feed. And so her body weight will go from something around 15 or 18 kilos down to 5 or 7 kilos when she dies. So she'll lose more than 50% of her body weight. Out of the nest that the female lays, if the population is going to stay stable, all you need is 2 to survive. They just basically replace the parents. So out of 57,000, which is the average for a female nest, you're only going to get 2 surviving. More than that, the population increases. Fewer than that, the population decreases. And right now, it looks like British Columbia's population is very stable.
James Cosgrove of the Royal British Columbia Museum has spent many years studying the reproductive behavior of these intriguing animals.
One of the most surprising things I've learned from my research was that the animals are such short-lived animals. It seems unfortunate that evolution would have developed such a magnificent animal, allowed it to grow up to 20 or 30 kilos, only to have it mate, lay its eggs, and die in a period of less than 4 years.
On the Gulf Coast of Texas, the research vessel Marie Hall departs from Galveston Bay. Researcher John Forsyth is fishing for food for his captive cephalopods. A bottom trawl is used to capture live shrimp, crabs, and fish. Small bay squid are also taken as a bycatch. They are transferred to a holding tank for the trip back to shore. Squid, octopuses, and cuttlefish dislike processed or dead food. They prefer to stalk and capture their prey, much as they do in the wild. Most cephalopods do very well in captivity, and these European cuttlefish exhibit many visual signals similar to those of Caribbean reef squid. In captive environments, they display all the behaviors of wild animals, including mating and egg-laying. At the National Resource Center for Cephalopods in Galveston, squids, octopuses, and cuttlefish are raised in a closed seawater system. Eggs, darkly pigmented with melanin, are collected and transferred to special tanks. Each marble-sized egg contains a single animal that hatches in only a few short weeks. These tiny cuttlefish are perfect replicas of their parents. The cephalopods are primarily utilized as marine lab rats. and shipped to researchers across North America. Like their rodent counterparts, these cuttlefish provide scientists with valuable insights into human physiology.
The reason cephalopods are so interesting is that much of the research we're helping to support is really ultimately aimed at understanding human diseases. But scientists find that going to a human or even a vertebrate is very difficult because the systems are so small and so sophisticated, it's a hard place to begin. So you move down the animal kingdom until you can find a sufficiently sophisticated system that you can begin to understand and ask good questions. And cephalopods, we find, are an interesting place to stop because they have very large elements of their physiology, be it the nervous system or the circulatory system or their brain or their eyes. The processes that are discovered there seem applicable to much more sophisticated systems like vertebrates, even all the way up to humans. This is the premier model in understanding how a living nerve cell can transmit an electric signal down its length. And when you consider that we don't have copper wire inside of us, it really is a miracle that electrical signals can move down living tissues.
Back from his fieldwork in Bonaire, Dr. James Wood updates the website that he developed to share cephalopod research. His office is crammed with toy octopuses and squids, a testament to his fascination with these animals. A skilled photographer, he carefully examines his underwater images for new clues to the visual language of the reef squid. It's clear that cephalopods have varying degrees of visual communication. The intensely social reef squid are the most expressive, while more solitary animals such as octopus seem to have less need for communication. The complexity of the squid visual displays studied by Jennifer Mather are indeed remarkable. But do they represent a language? Are these squid really able to talk? John Forsyth and James Cosgrove offer differing perspectives on the intelligence and communication skills of cephalopods.
There's no question that they're dazzling animals with a broad range of behaviors. To say an animal is intelligent, the best sort of definition or handle I've been able to put on it is to imagine that when an animal's born, you're born with a floppy disk that has so much code written on it, and that code is your behavior or your response to the world around you. I think the question of intelligence will be answered in cephalopods when we can show that the cephalopod can take that floppy disk of behavioral or life options and begin writing new code that wasn't there the day they hatched out. In other words, synthesizing new information into new responses that it didn't possess on the day it hatched. And that, to me, is the beginning of saying, yes, these animals are intelligent. There's no question that these animals are communicating with one another, primarily through visual signaling in their skin, but also their body posturing and their body movements. Reproduction, of course, is a very important area to be able to communicate in for any animal. Squids just don't randomly run into each other and mate and then move on. In all the hundreds of hours I've been able to spend watching them, I've never seen a predator get even close to a school of squid. They're gone long before that, so they're extremely effective in that type of communication. take this to the level of it, is it a language, is there syntax, or is there sentence structure to the way they communicate? That's very sophisticated and very difficult to get at. I don't think there are many of us ready to just yet say that's the way they structure their communication, but there's no doubt that they do make certain decisions very clearly known to one another.
The definition of cephalopod intelligence is a difficult one because we're putting human values on an animal that doesn't live in our environment. When we look at squids and cuttlefishes, we see a lot of visual communication there, and it's very clear that messages are passed back and forth. There is communication happening in that not only is the squid the sender of the message, it's also a receiver of the message, and that's what communication is.
It is well known that cephalopods can change color and texture more quickly than any animal. But the theories of the scientists in Bonaire take this behavior many steps further. Jennifer Mather believes the signals between reef squid to be the most complex visual display system among invertebrates. If the signals prove to be encoded with intelligent design, then Jennifer may have discovered something truly remarkable.
In terms of do these squid communicate with each other when they're in the groups and they're sending out these displays, this has to be answered by the simple step of saying what happens afterwards. And I've done some analyses about what happens afterwards. And yes, after these displays, other things happen reliably. So that's the answer of do they communicate? Yes, they're communicating to each other. Do I always know just exactly what the shades of meaning are? Lots to learn about that. The second part of the question of how are squid communicating is clearly, was Moynihan right? Do they have a language? And what I have to say at this point is they're so complicated, I can't tell you yet. I'm beginning to gather the basics of the simplest signals. And remember, sexual signals should be simple. I know that in terms of communication, anything that a squid wants to say, it will do not simply, but in a complex way. So there's definitely the background there that they could make a language. It's going to take a long time because it's such a complex thing, because it's such a complex and intelligent animal. There's lots and lots to learn. 4 years is just scratching the surface.
It may be a few more years before Jennifer Mather can ultimately prove that reef squid are capable of language. There is, however, one thing that is absolutely certain about cephalopods. They generate enormous fascination from a very passionate group of scientists.
You know, I think most marine biologists are attracted to something, and sometimes you don't know exactly why, but you're drawn to something, you begin looking at it. And for 25 years, I haven't been able to stop wondering about this animal group. With fishes, I'm not really sure if fish is looking at me. You know, it's hard to tell. But a cuttlefish or an octopus, when you're looking at that in an aquarium, it is looking at you. You're being observed as much as you are observing. There's just new books, new pages, new stones to be turned over that even I can't even imagine right now. But that's what drives a biologist, is knowing that an animal group that you know very well still has those magical mysteries to show to you.
I'm crazy about cephalopods because they're smart, and they're different smarts than our smarts, and I'm still trying to understand it. Lots of researchers find that they spend a lifetime with one species because they find that the closer they get to them, the more they get to know them, the more there is to know. And that's the kind of thing I have with these guys. I'm also nuts about squid because they're gorgeous to watch. I love watching the flashes. I love watching the color changes. They're beautiful animals. We don't just do it because it's absorbing and it's fascinating. We also do it because it's great fun.
Cephalopods are an amazing group of animals. Species we once considered frightening are proving to be intelligent and wonderfully adapted to their undersea habitat. By evolving with superb communication skills, cephalopods have become less like their simpler cousins and more like fish and perhaps even mammals. What they have accomplished is a remarkable ability to survive, even prosper, in a harsh environment. In nature, of course, that's the name of the game.
This captivating creature is a lionfish. They're beautiful indeed, but beware, needle-sharp venomous spines pack a nasty punch. Native to the Indo-Pacific, lionfish are now an invasive species across the Caribbean and much of the western Atlantic. They've spread out in all directions, millions of square miles of ocean. Efficient predators and prolific breeders, they wipe out native species at an alarming rate. In Mexico, Florida, and the Caribbean, suppression efforts are barely making a dent in their rapidly increasing numbers. Lionfish have now made their way to Central and South America. In Florida, teams of scuba divers compete in lionfish derbies to see who can spear or capture the most lionfish in a single day. And people certainly love to hunt.
I'm here to kill lionfish, gladly. Kill them all and let God sort them out, because they're evil and I hate them.
Wily entrepreneurs are racing to invent new and more lethal weapons to kill lionfish. Conservation groups are focusing significant resources on controlling the lionfish invasion. Scuba divers, spear fishermen, and government agencies all are united in their efforts to wipe out this destructive species. It's all-out war on these toxic invaders. No invasive species colonizes such a wide geographic area or variety of habitats as lionfish. They're everywhere, right from the surface down to a depth of 1,000 feet. As an invasive species, they're the perfect biological storm. Not many people know what a lionfish is or why they're a threat, but they should.
Do you know what a lionfish is?
No, I don't. What is it?
Do you know what a lionfish is?
No. No, I have no idea. Never heard of a lionfish.
I think its face has like whiskery fins.
I think they're very vicious.
I got a lionfish under my boat. It's about as big as this basket. Probably tastes better though.
Nearly 3,000 square miles in size, the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary stretches from South Miami to the dry Tortugas. Within its boundaries lie extensive coral reefs. The third largest barrier reef on the planet, 6,000 species of marine life call it home. The list of environmental challenges facing the sanctuary is daunting, but never before has it encountered a threat as potentially destructive as lionfish.
For the most part, the early reports were isolated to South Florida, and they were pretty few and far between until about 2000. And in 2000, we began to see reports coming from the east coast of the US as far north as North Carolina and out to Bermuda. And around then, people started saying, wait a second, this isn't just one or two fish anymore. Something's going on, and we're seeing increases in distribution and increases in abundance of lionfish. And that's when we really started looking into what this might mean for the region.
Captain Gary Mace owns and operates Conch Republic Divers. The lionfish invasion has given many in this business cause for concern.
Hey, Jim. Hey, Gary. Good to see you, buddy.
Gary is joined by underwater cameraman Jim Cosmic. Both divers know firsthand just how painful a lionfish encounter can be. Gary and Jim have both been stung.
I didn't really feel much at first, just a sharp, a spike, but about 3 hours later, it just came on like gangbusters. Very strong, pulsing nerve pain, very painful and constant throbbing in your arm. And it really hurt for about 3 days, and I only hit a small one.
To gain a better understanding of the lionfish invasion, marine biologist Dr. James Wood joined the dive team.
James, how you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Welcome to the Keys. Ready to hunt some lionfish now?
I am.
Okay, well, we got them waiting for you.
All right, let's go.
All right, come on. So the reefs out here, they're my livelihood. I come out here and I never see as many fish as I do right here on the Florida Keys. And that's what brings a lot of people down. These lionfish are eating the little babies, the juvenile fish, if you will. It's going to devastate the reef. When it devastates the reef, kills the fish, kills my livelihood. It's very important for us to find and destroy these lionfish.
Supposedly these gloves are lionfish proof. I hope.
The Eagle is an artificial reef, a ship purposely sunk to attract marine life and scuba divers. There's lots of dark corners and recesses, ideal places for fish to hide and to hunt. It's perfect habitat for lionfish. Because the wreck lies in deep water, the team uses rebreathers, high-tech equipment that allows the divers to venture deeper and stay underwater longer. After just a few minutes, they spot a lionfish. It makes no attempt to flee and seems to be unafraid of divers. But it's currently illegal in the sanctuary to spear fish while using rebreathers, so this lionfish is safe for now. To collect and spear lionfish on the shallow reef, the dive team switches to regular scuba gear. With clear capture nets, Gary traps his first lionfish. But not all lionfish are so easy to catch. After a few escapes, Gary turns to a conventional pole spear, and the hunt really begins. Considering their environmental impact, every lionfish removed from the reef is a small victory.
pretty neat following Gary around and watching him capture the two methods, one with a spear, the ones that we couldn't bag, and the ones that are out on top of the reef, we tried to bag them, and Gary got a few of them.
I'm a marine biologist, and I've been on assignment all over the world. But these are my local reefs. This is where I grew up. And as a kid, we didn't see lionfish. Now they're in a lot of different areas, and it's really disturbing to see them and see how many of them there are out there. South Florida has a lot of invasive species, pythons, iguanas, and tilapia. Pythons are a real problem in the Everglades, but they're mostly restricted to the Everglades. Lionfish, on the other hand, are broadcast spawners. A female lionfish can put out 2 million eggs per year, and those eggs go up into the currents and then gets distributed all over the greater Caribbean area, lots of different countries. Here we go.
How'd you make out? Not bad. We got 3 more monsters off the reef.
We did great. We saw a bunch. We got 3 in the bag. Success.
There's a way that they actually tell the age of these things. There's some bone inside them. It's like they say it's like a tree. They can actually measure the size of that. And I guess it's like counting the rings. Now these guys, I'd say they're probably maybe a little more than a year old. What I'm going to go ahead and do first is cut these spines off, make it a little better for us to grab. So we just take the scissors and cut the spines off. Now there's still venom inside underneath the skin there on the spines, but we're taking the sharp needle point off, so we won't have to worry about getting stuck, hopefully. And he's not so dangerous now. He won't be eating any more fish off our reef, that's for sure.
Jessica Pulfer is the director of Marine Lab, a research and educational facility in Key Largo.
Hi, James.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
I brought some lionfish with me.
Awesome. Ooh, nice fish.
Thank you.
First thing we can take a look at is this mouth. I love that his mouth is kind of open. That's one way that they are such good predators, is by simply opening up that mouth, and then whatever's nearby just gets sucked right in. This is the business end of the fish. This is where their defense mechanism comes on. We can pull open this dorsal spine that they have, or this dorsal fin that they have on top.
Looks like a needle.
It is pretty much a needle, like a hypodermic needle. The only place that you can get the venom is right at the tip of that needle. So if I were to just stick my finger right there, I'd probably get a little venom in.
So if you were to eat one of these as a predator, you'd probably get a spine or 3 in you.
Be a nasty case of indigestion.
We should call these punk rock fish. And we caught this little guy with the tropical fish net.
He's cute. Even that little guy packs a mean punch.
Oh yeah, look at those spines. Thanks, Jessica, for letting us use Marine Lab. It's been fun. I've learned a lot, and I hope to see you at the Derby.
It's Derby Day in Key Largo. A dozen teams from across South Florida are here to capture, spear, and to kill as many lionfish as possible.
Where are they at? We're ready. We are ready, my man. We got the frappers, we got the catch bags, we got a beautiful day in Key Largo, Florida. We got the frapper. We got the captain's version here. It works very much like a bow and arrow or a slingshot. We like to call it old technology wrapped in a new package. Prepare to be controlled. Resistance is futile.
I'm here to kill lionfish. Gladly. Kill them all and let God sort them out. Because they're evil and I hate them.
It's open season on the invaders. No bag limits, very few rules. An all-out offensive against public enemy number 1.
Get some air on board for people. Captain's got to find them. And yes, they are widespread throughout Atlantic and Caribbean, but it's no guarantee we're going to find fish on every dive. So,
no guarantee.
Between our girl over here with local knowledge and Mike with local knowledge, we're going to find some fish, aren't we, hon? Yes, yes.
We're going to head out off Key Largo here. We're going to get into an area known as Hawks Channel. This is a pathway, if you will, out in the ocean that parallels the shoreline of the Florida Keys.
Okay. Yeah.
Good plan.
Bob Hickerson is one of a handful of entrepreneurs developing new weapons to handle and to kill lionfish. It's a booming business. After a brief run out to sea from the marina, Team Frapper is ready to rumble. All teams must be back to shore with their lionfish catches by 5 p.m. There's no time to waste. It's 8 a.m. and Team Salty Dog is off to a very late start. Both Team Frapper and Team Salty Dog hope to dominate the competition, but a lionfish hunt is at best a crapshoot. You never know where they are or if they've been fished out.
The number of lionfish we get is partly luck, as well as our own skill in underwater and finding them. We might end up at the end of the day with 3 lionfish, or we might end up with 300.
Hey Dan?
Yeah.
Just grab a mask and fins, no scuba, and just jump in and take an eyeball.
All right.
We're close to the mangroves. A lot of juvenile fish hang out. Shallower water. Right now we're like an 8 foot of depth. We're just checking to see if we can find a rock formation.
Topography is grassy plains. Something this area is known for, but not what we're looking for. So we're gonna go try something different. Dive, dive, dive.
We just jumped in at about 15 feet to see if we could find any rock formations where the lionfish may be hiding, but the visibility is pretty poor, and all we saw was grasslands, so we're gonna head out to some bluer water and our hunt for the lionfish.
Yeah. It's gonna get much better when we go deeper.
Yeah,
I hope we just find one.
We'll find more than one. We just gotta go deeper into some blue water.
We got a wall dive. We're on top of the wall right now, about 40, 45 feet, and the wall slides down to about 90 to 100 feet to the sand.
As a safety precaution, divers deploy marker buoys. The buoys indicate where team members are and also let other boaters know that divers are just below the surface.
Lionfish love structure, whether it's shallow structure, deep structure, doesn't matter. Artificial reefs are great, whether it's wrecks, pipes, etc. They like ledges, anything that gives them up out of the current and secure. Usually wherever lobsters are.
Even though sonar profiles showed the right topography for lionfish, Team Salty Dog's first few dives resulted in nothing more than a curious sea turtle.
I mean, it seems like ideal lionfish territory. Excellent structure, excellent ledges. They're just not here, which means other divers have been, either today or past month or so.
Please remember that all of the waters of the Florida Keys are a national marine sanctuary, including where we are now. I would start out in the 18, 20 foot where the sand is and move over to the ledge and then just work the ledges.
Hey, there's the competition. Look at them. Ah, they don't know what they're doing.
The first few dives for Team Frapper also proved to be a bust. The reefs they scoured didn't hold any lionfish. Where was the so-called lionfish invasion?
Guy, I got skunked. Yeah, I didn't see a one. All right. I'm going to lose my name as Spotter.
You don't have lionfish, you can't come back on the boat. You got to go back and get some.
Perfect habitat. Somebody's already cleaned it off.
Didn't find any. Found a lot of other cool stuff.
It's evident that spear fishermen and divers are effective in controlling lionfish numbers. The problem is, there's far more terrain, millions of square miles, that is not visited by scuba divers or is too deep. That's where lionfish seem to be thriving. Both teams decide to try their luck in more remote areas where scuba divers rarely visit. And they weren't disappointed. At last, the salty dog's luck changes for the better. They finally discover some lionfish.
The tallest structure in the whole reef we went up to, and there was 3 lionfish.
I told you there was an invasion.
I got them all in the last 30 seconds of the dive.
Nice.
I killed all 3 of those when I had 500 pounds of air. I was quite literally starting to pick them up, and I saw one. So then I'm like, oh well. I call this my lionfish killer because I bought it a month ago and I've killed 187 so far. So she's a lethal little girl.
All right, we got a spot. First 2 turned up negative. This one sounds very promising, somewhere around 50 to 80 feet.
Immediately upon entry, Bob Hickerson spots the first of several lionfish, a proverbial fish in a barrel.
First one you and I came upon, that small one in the barrel sponge, and man, it was like perfect setup.
The frapper's luck also changes. Their last 2 dives turn into a shooting gallery. Most lionfish don't make much of an effort to hide or avoid divers. Their defensive spines are generally quite effective and deter most predators. But not these hunters.
Oh, look at that. Way to go, Bob.
He was deep in underneath the coral head, hanging out. I called Mike over because he had full spear with him and needed a little more reach.
Lionfish on this remote reef were sitting ducks for Team Frapper.
The last coral head, there was 3 big ones in it. So we were basically on both sides because there was like a tunnel going under.
Well, how'd you do?
We did well.
As a team,
well.
You brought a lot back from this spot.
Yes, everybody came back with something in their bag.
I tell you what, that last spot, she missed the count. There were 5 big ones under that last coral head. And we got them all.
I can keep my title now of spotter.
There you go.
Yes.
And it just was non-stop. Spotter, nice one on that big one.
Darryl, good spot, man. Good spot. This is the catch of the day. Maria brought back to the boat. She was in about 30 feet of water when she got this one. It's a nice one.
Yep.
It's one of the bigger ones I've seen of recent. That's for sure.
On the tool, on the frapper itself.
6, 7, 8, 9.
Bastards. Great day on the water here in the Keys. I think we got a real good shot at the largest category. Definitely have a contender.
All right, it was a good day for us, but a very bad day for the lionfish.
A little bravado is in order. Team Frapper did quite well. Meanwhile, Team Salty Dog is running late. They've only got a few minutes to make the Derby cutoff time. This is video footage of the first confirmed lionfish in the Florida Keys. It's difficult to believe the date. It's not that long ago. With cameras in tow, Lad Akins of the Reef Environmental Education Foundation did the honors. It was the first recorded lionfish capture in a full-scale invasion of the Florida Keys. One of the big questions surrounding lionfish, and perhaps something that will never be fully understood, is how they got here in the first place. Forrest Young of Dynasty Marine explains.
I believe that this came from some type of either a home aquarium or an aquarium release, whether it was a well-meaning individual with a pet who didn't want to euthanize it when it outgrew the confines of the tank, or some other situation where these animals got into the wild. But it seemed to spread from the Miami area north and south. We've caught a lot of lionfish over the years. It started off as just a tiny trickle of one here and one there. I mean, it was actually almost a year before I saw my first lionfish after they had been reported here, and now they're everywhere. Once a fish becomes established, taking 50 or 2,000 or 5,000 fish really isn't going to make any difference. In order to eliminate this species completely, you probably have to get almost every last one, because I believe in my heart that this introduction started with only 1 or 2 fish. It remains to be seen how big of a real problem this is going to be over the course of the next decade or two.
The lionfish invasion has spurred demand for new equipment in this diving superstore. Just like other sportsmen, lionfish hunters need weapons and gear.
These are what a lot of people are going to be thinking of when they're thinking of spear guns and spear fishing. These big guns. These are meant for open water, big fish. You want to go for big papa grouper, this is what you want. But when you want to get up close and personal in the reef and shoot a little lionfish, probably overkill. I think I need a smaller gun. To use the lionfish pole spear like any other pole spear, all you do is hold that elastic under your thumb, reach that elastic all the way up to the top, and then when you're ready, let it go. These are the nets that you could use to net a lionfish. If you do take the class to do it within the sanctuary areas, this is what you gotta use. The nice thing about lionfish is that they tend to sit pretty darn still. They don't move too much. So when you're hunting your lionfish, a lot of people like to wear puncture-resistant gloves just because of those lionfish spines. They're very, very sharp, very fine, like a needle. So the gloves are going to help prevent any accidental sticks.
Team Frapper is the first team back to shore with their catch.
It looks like Team Frapper just got in, so we'll go ahead and get them scored and we'll take their maps and we'll see what they brought in.
You guys all good today?
Everybody came back.
It was close.
One of the gals almost got it.
Oh, we got some nice ones in here.
Oh, that is a beast. That thing is so big.
All right, very nice. All right.
Each lionfish is measured and logged into the reef database.
272.
Every piece of data collected is valuable information in the fight against this invasive species.
134. You're in the lead on all categories. Not too close. Little fishy breath. That's a nice fish.
All right, now one more of me looking mean.
So we're here in our 3rd year of lionfish derbies in the Florida Keys, and it's great to see so many of the same familiar faces who are out there having a great day on the water capturing lionfish. These derbies are a fantastic outreach tool. They enable us to spread the word to people who are both familiar and unfamiliar with lionfish, to bring them together where they can socialize, have fun watching the lionfish be counted, but also get to taste and sample lionfish, because the lionfish that are caught here today are actually cooked up and served.
They taste fantastic. Very, very light, flaky white fish.
similar to hogfish. Big, beautiful fillet.
One of the new categories in this year's Derby is the smallest fish caught, and this one is tiny.
Oh my goodness. That's one of the smallest I've seen. Wow. Oh, nice. I'm gonna say 43. I get a confirmation. That's the smallest in any of the Key Largo Derbies so far.
It was a really good day out on the water. We did about 6 dives and we got about 100 fish.
Oh, yeah.
There's definitely a lot less lionfish now that we went through there.
Oh man, we killed it. We did pretty good. We did really good. We did really good. We're confident about our results.
We had a great time out there. The weather was fantastic. We went to probably about 80 spots free diving, and we got a whole bunch of them. We'll see how many we got.
We covered probably 70, 80 miles, something like that.
So technique, we were free diving and using nets. We use these tiny little nets. They're maybe like 8 inches by 8 inches square. So they're really fast to go through the water. We scouted hundreds of spots and we had identified the top ones that we were gonna go to. So we would drop in 2 free divers and they would go down with the nets. The boat would circle around and we would go down and catch them 1, 2 at a time sometimes, throw them into the boat. A new net is coming right back into the water for us to go down and do our next dive.
Not all the divers managed to avoid getting stung by a lionfish.
It's like getting your hand slammed in a car door.
Getting your hand slammed in a car door while it's on fire.
I almost cried.
As results pour in, a clearer picture of the day's catch emerges. A lot of lionfish were removed from the reef. Team Salty Dog makes it back to the Derby with just a few minutes to spare.
The last place we went, it didn't really look like there was going to be that much, but lo and behold, we got 6, and we got them all in the last hour. A dead lionfish is always a good lionfish, regardless, whether it's you get 6 today or 300 tomorrow. It's all good.
136, 161.
Each tagged fish garners an extra $50 in prize money and lets Reef know exactly where the fish were caught. The teams must report their capture sites with GPS coordinates.
That's a tag that came out of one of the fish from this team.
Yeah, that's a tagged lionfish. Tag number 655. Got it? Okay, good.
Random lionfish are dissected to see what they're eating.
In this one stomach, we have 5 different fish that are inside of it, and their stomach can expand up to 33 times its own size. So they'll eat pretty much all day, every day, whatever fits in their mouth until their stomach is as full as they can get, and then they'll pretty much wait until it gets digested and then just go and eat some more. And they'll eat fish whole, so you'll see all sorts of stuff, from blue crab to snapper, grouper.
So far, Team Strategery's impressive catch is the front-runner for most lionfish, and they did it all without spearing a single fish or even using scuba gear.
We knew that the sizes would increase and we knew the numbers would increase, but it's still surprising every time those tallies come in and you realize that in an individual day, 2 free divers can bring in over 200 lionfish.
The total number of fish for this year's Derby, 461 lionfish. Good job, everybody. Second place in the largest category, 378 millimeters, to a team that's been in every Florida Derby since they started, Team Proper. Good job. Hey. You're welcome. In first place with the new record for the Upper Keys Derby, Team Strategery, 233 fish. There you go. Good job. Nicely done, Alicia. Great. Way to go, guys. $1,000 first place prize. And keep up the good work year round. The Derby is more than just about removing lionfish, and it's a great tool to get people more aware of this issue and realize that lionfish is a problem, we need to do something about it, but also invasive species in general are bad, and we need to work on preventing this from happening again.
There's only one way to find out how effective derbies are in suppressing lionfish numbers. Head out to the reef and survey the lionfish that remain. Lad Akins and his team revisit some of their pre-Derby survey sites.
We're gonna hop in, kind of spread out, survey the reef, find out how many lionfish are here and get the sizes of each of those fish. Okay.
The first order of business is to measure the size of some of the remaining lionfish.
Every third or fourth rock coral head down there is maybe 1 or 2 under each of them. I can't believe how many are in shallow water here. It's amazing.
One of our recent lionfish derbies, the derby brought in over 1,000 lionfish in a single-day event. And we calculated the consumption, what those lionfish would have eaten over the next year's time if they had not been removed. And the results were pretty astounding. Somewhere between 2 million and 8.8 million prey fish would have been consumed by those 1,000 lionfish over the next year's time.
Tagging is another tool in the fight against these invasive fish. It helps the reef team track down lionfish distribution and migration.
The tagging to me was really interesting. They're actually tagging the animals underwater, so they're not bringing them up to the surface. And that's important because then they can tag them at any depth. Fish have a swim bladder, so that air expands as you bring them up. So if you're working really deep, you can't really bring those fish up to the surface.
This is one of those sites that before the derby we had seen quite a number of lionfish and tagged quite a few as well. And we just did another survey on the site and we still saw a lot of lionfish, including some of those that were tagged. So it's pretty obvious that nobody's been to this site during the derby.
Gary Mays found out yet again just how difficult it is to handle lionfish safely.
When I was taking the lionfish off the spear in the bag, I put the spear this way and pulled it back. Well, one of the spines got me right there on that finger.
Unfortunately, on that last one, Gary took a little sting, so he aborted the dive, came up, made a safe ascent, which is good. And right now we're gonna get him some hot water and get that hand soaking in the hot water so we can denature that venom and get him back to feeling good.
I was really surprised to see the number of lionfish that were on here. It just shows how they're taking over the Keys, and we need to really get out there and start doing some more work and dive some of these lesser dove sites to get them off the reef, because one thing I noticed down there was a lot of lionfish. The little bitty fish weren't around, so you know that the lionfish are probably cleaning them off.
Even though we're trying to address this lionfish invasion, we really don't have anything against the fish. So we try to put them down humanely, and immersion in an ice water bath like this is one of the most humane ways we can euthanize these fish. So their bodies are just going to slowly shut down in this very cold temperature, and they'll expire without going through too much undue stress.
Lionfish are having a dramatic impact on the Florida Keys, but they're still in the early stages of their invasion. In the Bahamas, they are very well established. Lionfish impacts there are profound.
Stephanie Green from Simon Fraser University in Vancouver had a recent study that showed in a 2-year period in the Bahamas, predation of lionfish decreased the native marine life population by an average of 65%, with some sites showing as high as a 95% decline in just 2 years. So we're realizing now that the impacts lionfish are going to have may be very, very severe. While we're pretty sure that we are not going to be able to eradicate lionfish, there are some really positive notes in local control. And what we're finding is that active removal programs on a regular basis can bring the lionfish numbers down significantly to the point that they're not really impacting the system. And I think when we look long term and look into the future, what we're hoping for is to minimize those populations, at least in key areas, and allow nature some time to come up with its own biocontrol mechanisms, or at the least, buy some time for new technologies that may be able to affect change on a much broader scale.
Scuba divers and competitive derbies help to suppress lionfish numbers, but to manage their explosive growth, most people agree that some form of commercial fishery needs to be considered. Lobster fishermen are finding that lionfish are attracted to bait, and are sneaking into their lobster traps.
You want to see some lionfish? Here you go.
I never saw a lionfish in my life until about 3 years ago. I think we caught 32 and we reported each one. It was a big deal to us to get a lionfish. I think I got the world's record at the time, which ended up being like 32 lionfish in a season. By the second season, we were up to as many as probably 50 a day of lionfish in our traps, and we started seeing them a little more in the deep water. So I said, I'm going to take these around to the restaurants. So we carried them up and down the Keys to the chefs at the different restaurants, and now it's starting to expand to other restaurants. I sold about 6,000 pounds of lionfish last year off the boat at $6 a pound, so it became a pretty lucrative little enterprise. The lionfish are coexisting with the lobster, obviously, because we're fishing for lobster, we're not fishing for lionfish. At least we're able to market these lionfish. There must be just a million of them, because I'm fishing my traps from 100 feet of water out to 300 feet of water. And the deeper I go, the more lionfish I see. The deeper you go, the bigger they seem to be also. It's pretty incredible.
Man, they're getting so big. My God.
I don't know what they're eating, but they displace the lobster. What happens if you get 3 or 4 lionfish in a trap, the lobster really don't want to go in with the lionfish. You might get a couple of lionfish in with a lobster, but the lobster don't want to go in with them lionfish. I don't know why. Nature usually takes care of itself, so someday, somehow, something will eat them up. So if not, I don't know what the end result's going to be here.
Bad for the reef, but great for the restaurant. This was nice on the plate.
That one's huge.
I'll take everything you got. I said, what I've got from you already is already gone.
And that's going to win. We have to tear this to 0.
Ted Drever owns and operates the Conch House, a popular Key Largo seafood restaurant. He discovered that lionfish were a tasty alternative to heavily stressed species such as snapper and grouper.
Here we are, dear. Lionfish taco.
Thank you.
Demand is brisk, but initially it was difficult to convince customers to eat them since many people thought they were poisonous.
All right, and this is today's catch. I got these from Nickel Seafood. So what I like to do is I actually like to skin these fish before I fillet them. I actually go ahead and trace it out as to what I want the fillet to look like. I know what I expect to get. Turn it over to the chef. So this skin pulls off very nicely. This is going to be the fillet that we're looking for right here. Work this off here. Oh, the people love this fish. This fish is a nice, mild, very similar to hogfish, which is one of the local delicacies down here. Cut off this bones, and that's what you're looking for. Just a nice fillet right here.
This fish here have a very nice taste to it. Every single person who coming in here, they all talking about this is the best fish they ever have. Let's say I have 40 pounds. Less than a day, they're gone. We always have people coming back for more. So this one is ready to go.
There's a lot of people who are confused about lionfish when they come in. They actually are scared to eat it. They've got fears built up on something. A lot of people actually say lionfish is poisonous. Oh, they would never eat this fish. It's not poisonous at all. It's actually venomous, and venomous is harmless when digested. But it's actually the quills that hold the venom, not the fillets themselves, not the meat. The meat, really white, really mild, delicious, delicious fish, and absolutely harmless. The reviews are amazing every time.
If there's a silver lining to this lionfish issue and a weakness in lionfish themselves, it's that they taste great. And they are commonly eaten in their native range, they're just not encountered very frequently. So capitalizing on that, we realized that getting lionfish into the market provides incentive for fishermen to go out and remove the fish.
While it's generally agreed the lionfish invasion is grave news for the region, some people see it as an opportunity.
What people have failed to see is how this is really impacting scuba, because it's not all negative. This has really put a focus on scuba and on scuba divers in a way I haven't seen in a while. Rather than us being always taught not to hurt the environment, not to touch the coral, not to touch this, they're asking us to go out and kill these fish. They're actually asking us to go and slay stuff. And environmentalists never ask you to kill stuff. They never want you to touch anything. They want you to always keep it, but we get to kill it. We get to eat it. And there's no limits. There's nothing that stops us from whatever we need to do to get rid of these critters. Now, will that make an impact? Probably not.
Lionfish are here to stay. We've never said that we hope to eradicate them because basically the ocean currents are like a conveyor belt. It's just going to continue to bring them. I tell people that lionfish are part of the Florida Keys story.
Lionfish really are a beautiful, wonderful, ornate fish in their native range. But here in the wider Caribbean, they don't belong, and they're causing very severe problems. And this is a problem we know that we started, it's introduced by man, and it's really going to be up to us to address this.
This is one of the largest creatures on Earth. But it's not a whale, it's a really big shark. They're called whale sharks, and they can weigh more than 30 tons and be longer than a city bus. They may be sharks, but we don't have to worry. They eat only the smallest animals in the sea. And like other sharks, they are threatened. Their numbers have declined dramatically, decimated by the global trade in shark fins and demand for their meat. Marine conservationists Brad Norman and Denny Ramirez study the behavior and biology of these enigmatic giants. At Mexico's Holbox Island and Australia's Ningaloo Reef, whale sharks congregate each year in search of food, and researchers also gather here to learn more about the sharks and how to save them from extinction. A booming ecotourism industry revolves around snorkeling with whale sharks. But the explosive growth of the industry may be scaring the animals away. And hundreds of miles from the nearest ocean, the world's largest aquarium is home to 4 growing whale sharks. They're huge animals. They've been around for at least 60 million years. But we know very little about whale sharks. We see them so rarely. They weren't even identified as a species until the mid-19th century. One of the few things we do know is that their numbers are decreasing. Whale sharks are cold-blooded, warm-water fish. They live in temperate and tropical seas near the equator. These giant sharks are amazing travelers, and they migrate immense distances in search of food. And this is what gets them into trouble. While they may be protected in one country's waters, they've been hunted relentlessly in others. And a single whale shark fin can be worth thousands of dollars. A coral reef, a beautiful and rich undersea realm. Countless species of marine life thrive here. At certain times of the year, the reef explodes with life. It's called a food pulse, when corals, fish, and other creatures lay their eggs. This mass simultaneous spawning injects so much food into the water column that predators just can't eat them all. Most of the eggs drift away on the currents unharmed. It's a brilliant survival strategy. But the tiny creatures aren't out of harm's way just yet. They are no match for one of the ocean's biggest binge eaters, whale sharks. Along the western coast of Australia, Cape Range National Park and the Ningaloo Reef stretch for almost 200 miles. Perth is a remote city on the edge of a remote continent, but that's not where the whale sharks are. To find them, you must fly another 1,000 miles north to the tip of the most westerly part of Australia. This is about as far as you can get from anywhere in Australia. Until 1967, there wasn't much to speak of at Cape Range, except perhaps for a few fishermen. The Cold War was in full swing, and the U.S. Navy built a submarine communications base on Australian soil. The radio towers are the tallest man-made structures in the Southern Hemisphere. The base eventually closed down in the early 90s, and the neighboring town of Exmouth lost their main employer. The economic forecast was grim. The whale sharks, of course, had never left. It took a transplanted village doctor from England who loved scuba diving to help sow the seeds of a new industry.
I'm a general practitioner. I had become very keen on underwater photography and bought myself a small cine camera before I went to Exmouth. And I was just falling in love with the whole marine environment up there, the coral reefs, the manta rays, dugong sharks, all the creatures that are up there at Ningaloo. Then one day in March 1983, suddenly, after several hours of searching, we encountered a really big shark. I finally got in the water and swam with it and filmed it, and I was ecstatic. I was over the moon. I mean, to swim next to such a huge creature, to be able to approach it and get so close, it was just a mind-blowing experience. I knew that whale sharks had been seen at Ningaloo before occasionally, but really nothing had prepared me for the numbers that we would see coming in each autumn. And after that first encounter in 1983, we went on in the next 2 or 3 weeks to see numerous whale sharks, about 20 that season.
Taylor had stumbled onto a remarkable annual event. Each year, from March through June, giant whale sharks appeared seemingly out of the blue. Jeff theorized that for a few short months in the austral fall, whale sharks gathered, attracted by seasonal spawning events at Ningaloo Reef. He didn't realize the potential of his discovery at the time, and even thought about keeping it a secret. But his pioneering research and film footage eventually brought the story to the world. Television networks, marine biologists, and eventually tourists began flocking to Cape Range to witness the annual whale shark migration. Taylor is now considered to be the father of whale shark tourism in Western Australia. In the late 80s, a handful of businesses sprang up in the tiny villages of Coral Bay and Exmouth that relied on whale sharks' yearly visits. Animal-based ecotourism is now the #1 industry.
I have to tell you about a day this season. They spotted a very large whale shark. Our crew estimated it to be probably about 14 metres in length, which is just about the length of the boat we go out on.
From April to July, whale sharks are an enormous part of our business. They're very important to us as a community and as a dive center. We have clients from all over the world, and that's especially interesting when you consider how far away we are from everything. Our season so far has been fantastic. We had excellent sharks starting about the beginning of April, and we expect them to run till about the 3rd week of July this year. My first whale shark was in about 1996, and I see this enormous fish swimming out of the blue and suddenly materializing in front of my eyes. It was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had.
In Coral Bay and neighboring Exmouth, whale sharks are big business. Much of the local economy revolves around swimming with the giant fish. Today, marine conservationist Brad Norman is joining a diverse group of tourists from around the globe.
Okay, good morning everyone and welcome to Exmouth Dive Centre and your whale shark adventure of the day. We have had a lot of action out there. Yesterday we must have swum with 5 or 6 whale sharks. Okay, yay! What's going to happen this morning is we're going to hop onto the bus. It's going to take us about 40 minutes. Are we ready? Yay! Okay, let's get going.
Whale sharks are the #1 attraction at Ningaloo Marine Park at this time of the year, between about April and June. There's more than 7,000 tourists per year swim with whale sharks, so it's a really, really big industry to the region, and it's great to get that many people interested in whale sharks and taking the message about their conservation back to their friends and family.
The whale sharks are found in deeper water outside the shallow reef. Smaller skiffs ferry the tourists out to the dive boats waiting just offshore. For Brad Norman, the people on this whale shark watching trip are more than just tourists. They're research assistants, helping to unlock the mysteries of this fascinating animal. Swimming with whale sharks, that's what people come here to do. But there are strict guidelines. The maximum number of divers in the water at one time and the minimum safe distance from the animals.
Once you've seen the shark, you move to the side, okay? You'll be in front of it, it'll come towards you, move to one side, then turn around and just start swimming alongside the whale shark.
Hey guys, I got a whale shark down here.
Okay, hands up in group 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2 more, who else is in group 1? In group 1? Group 1. Okay, quickly. Okay, go, go, go!
The guide's upraised arm indicates the shark's position. This is the perfect opportunity for the group to swim alongside a whale shark, but you have to move fast.
So little was known about whale sharks around the world, and I got to reading about them. I've been to Ningaloo and I was helping with some other research on fish, heard about the whale sharks and got very interested in trying to learn more about them. Then the opportunity came up where I could swim with a whale shark for the first time, and it really was one of the most amazing experiences I can remember. Jumping in the water into the deep blue, we're in about 90 or 100 metres, and looking under the water trying to see something coming at me, and then all of a sudden out of the blue come this massive, massive creature. I mean, the size of a bus. It literally was a bus underwater coming towards me, and I was just shell-shocked. I was just looking at it go past, and it was so graceful and so beautiful. It really made me really want to help this species as much as I could.
Fantastic, that was huge. That was massive. That was hard work keeping up with it.
It's unbelievable. It's one of the
best experience of my life, and it's now it's really amazing.
It's a big ocean out there, and boats don't stumble onto whale sharks simply by chance. They need a little help from above.
Basically how the aerial spotting works is the planes go up and spot for the boats, cruise along the reef, search various squid patterns, and then when we find a shark we'll call the boats, give them a position on the reef, and then basically talk them into the shark using the clock code, so 12 o'clock at say 4 or 5 boat lengths for the boats, and talk them in through about 400 metres into the shark and onto the shark, and they take over once they get a visual.
A small fleet of planes takes to the skies each morning during whale shark season. It would be difficult for dive boats to find the animals without aerial spotting. Even though the sharks are frequently at the surface, they don't breach or surface for air like whales do.
C-zone, this is Norwest there.
Yeah, go ahead, Norwest there, C-zone here.
Yeah, g'day Craig, I've just picked up about an 8 metre shark here off your 1 o'clock, about 15 boat lengths.
Yeah, righto mate, you just taught me onto it, I'll be there in a second. Yeah, righto mate, you let me know when I'm within 4 boat lengths.
Roger, will do. Okay, C-zone, that's coming up in your 11 o'clock, you're about 4.5 boat lengths away.
Yeah, beautiful mate. Yep, I got a visual, that's great.
Okay guys, go, go, go!
I knew the threats facing whale sharks. I knew they were a species in trouble. Being a marine biologist and somebody very interested in the oceans, it seemed to be a perfect match to trying to help save the largest fish in the sea. Whale sharks are such a difficult species to study, really, because they do roam the oceans. 70% of the planet's water. And we just can't really keep an eye on everything. There's niches that are important to them. We don't know where those important spots are to protect them.
Another day, another whale shark. But which one? Has it been the Ningaloo before? Has it been seen and identified before? Brad Norman and other researchers had noticed that every whale shark had a different configuration of white spots, scars, and marks.
We knew that whale sharks have spots and lines all over their body, possibly could be used to identify individuals. It was a case of actually refining that thought. When you're working with thousands and thousands of photographs, it becomes unworkable to try to match things up by eye.
Brad photographs the pattern of spots, adding to a growing database of images that identify individual animals. Science and conservation depends on data, and for whale sharks, photography is a primary tool. Like a human fingerprint, each animal has its own distinct pattern of spots. The patterns are complex, but there's something similar in the night sky, the galaxies of outer space. There was an existing technology that could catalog distant stars and planets. NASA's Hubble telescope utilized an advanced computer program to identify astral bodies. With the help of a computer programmer and an astrophysicist, the NASA technology was modified and adapted. Instead of identifying stars and galaxies, the new program identifies individual whale sharks. The process starts with a photo of an area near the 5th gill slit, and the spots are connected with triangles. The computer program then analyzes the image and compares the information with other whale sharks in the database.
People can just go to whaleshark.org and click on the website. There's a reported encounter page, date, time, location, and they can submit a photograph online. There's a little bit of work that we have to do with the processing of the photographs. We run a scan, come up with either a match for a shark previously seen or a new shark. Tourists and divers can become involved in two ways. One, learning more about whale sharks by going to the website. The second way is swim with a whale shark, take a photo, and send that photo with the date and location of sighting. And that'll help us understand more about the numbers and the movements of these whale sharks around the world.
At Perth's Murdoch University, Brad Norman continues his pioneering work in whale shark identification. His efforts have garnered him the prestigious Rolex Award for Enterprise, and he is now an emerging explorer with the National Geographic Society. At Ningaloo Reef, tourists come for the experience of swimming with whale sharks, and at the same time, they help to increase our knowledge of these enigmatic animals.
There's many mysteries to whale sharks. We don't know where they're breeding. We don't know how often they breed. We don't know really where exactly they're migrating to and from, and how many actually are out there. These are points that, as to date, we haven't been able to answer. But as we build the program, we raise the awareness, we get thousands of people involved in helping with the research for whale sharks, I think we can answer the questions.
You don't have to travel to remote Western Australia to see whale sharks. Hundreds of kilometers from the nearest saltwater, the world's largest aquarium is home to 4 growing whale sharks. This idyllic undersea realm appears to be a thriving coral reef. Rare sharks and rays patrol the sandy bottom. But this isn't the tropical Pacific or even the Caribbean. It's the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta, and it's over 200 miles from the nearest ocean. Dozens of exhibits house an impressive collection. 100,000 animals represent over 500 different species. Nearly the size of a football field and 30 feet deep, this is the biggest individual fish tank on the planet, the Ocean Voyager exhibit. It holds enough water to fill 10 Olympic-sized swimming pools. And they build it big for a reason. The star attractions here are whale sharks. They join a cast of thousands in the aquarium's most popular exhibit.
The whale shark was a real challenge for the team here at the Georgia Aquarium in designing this exhibit. It is a huge animal, and we had to create an exhibit here, a habitat, where these animals could remain their entire lives and be able to comfortably swim all that time as well. It's 285 feet from one end to the other. And that would give even an adult whale shark plenty of room to swim without having to turn around in a circle.
Behind the scenes and out of sight, there's an entire city of pumps, pipes, and filters.
Where you're standing right now, you're in the heart of the Ocean Voyager exhibit. Everything in this room is dedicated to ensuring that Ocean Voyager has good, clean, healthy water for the animals. Being in Atlanta, being about 5 hours from the nearest ocean, we actually have to create our own salt water here on site. We've designed the turnover rate to be about once every 60 minutes, and that means that each drop of water comes out of the exhibit and goes through the entire filtration process every hour.
It's all run by computers. 3,200 control points are connected with over 25 miles of wiring. And keeping it up and running smoothly is a massive undertaking.
It takes a lot of behind-the-scenes work to keep this equipment up and running properly.
water in dozens of exhibits, all 8 million gallons of it, needs to be kept sparkling clean. And so do the windows. Every day, a team of volunteer divers descend into Ocean Voyager. Window washers with scuba tanks.
The cleaning guys go in every morning and they take baby diapers and they wipe down all of the acrylic in the exhibit, making sure all of the sand and gravel and everything is off of it so it doesn't get scratched, and also wiping down algae so it doesn't build up.
Today, there's a new group of divers. For the first time, the whale sharks are going to be filmed by an underwater television crew. Veteran cinematographers Tom Campbell and Neil McDaniel had worked in virtually every marine environment on Earth. But this is unlike any dive they've ever done. Saltwater and expensive electronics don't mix. Technician Dennis Kaufman prepares the high-tech housing and camera equipment for the dive. Big cameras for big fish. Keeping out of the way of an animal the size of a bus is definitely a concern. But safety divers are more wary of a great hammerhead shark and a couple of very territorial Goliath groupers. Everything in the Ocean Voyager tank is huge.
All right, guys, today our objective is to clean the windows, and there's going to be some filming going on at the same time. Our time and depth is however long it takes to do the windows, which should be about an hour. Depth is no greater than 30 feet. Bertius and Jim will be your safeties, so they will be hanging out with you guys, and these guys will be covering them.
It's definitely the coolest indoor dive you'll probably find in the world. And it rivals even dives out there in open ocean. And yeah, at the end of the day, in all my years of diving, I've never seen whale sharks in the wild, and to be able to dive with them here daily is amazing.
Well, this is the first for us in a big tank like this, huh?
I've been in aquarium tanks, Tom, but they've all been about, I don't know,
Half the
1/10 the size of this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's going to be
Great.
pretty wild.
Above water, the high-definition camera system weighs nearly 100 pounds and is very awkward to carry. But underwater, it's as light as a feather. The first resident to check out the camera team is the giant hammerhead. Fortunately, he's very well fed.
You got to remember, when you do an exhibit like this, there is no handbook called Whale Sharks for Dummies. We don't have a guide on how to keep the whale sharks. Now, we know a lot about sharks in aquariums, and we can apply that knowledge to this, the largest of all the sharks, when we designed the exhibit. But every day is still a learning curve for us. We're learning a lot, how fast they grow. We have males and female whale sharks here, so we're very interested in how their biology and their behavior changes as they mature. We have some great opportunities to learn even more about them, because this is like a laboratory, a big laboratory, where we can study the whale shark, learn a little bit about its sensory biology. What does it actually see? What can it smell? How does it find its food? These are all questions that we can learn here in this aquarium environment, which would be very hard to learn in the ocean.
That really is something. You know what's kind of neat about it is that we've seen a lot of these fish in the open ocean, but everybody looks so happy down there. I mean, all the fish look happy. They're just moving around doing what they do, and it's really something. Have that wide variety, and the whale sharks are fabulous.
Really cool. I mean, it's just amazing to be in the water with 4 whale sharks. That big grouper in the corner, though, boy, he gave me a scare. I was filming the tunnel there, and all of a sudden he showed up, and that thing is big, really big, and he kind of looked at me with those big eyeballs, and I'm thinking, oh, I think I'm in his territory. I'm going to go out of here.
These are the only whale sharks in an aquarium in the Western Hemisphere. There's a handful of others in smaller facilities in Asia, closer to where the animals were originally captured. The sharks in Georgia, however, had a lot farther to travel. The Atlanta whale sharks were originally caught by fishermen in Taiwan and were destined for the dinner plate. But the Georgia Aquarium had other plans.
We had a good baseline knowledge of how to move animals. We just had to supersize it all. Basically what we did is we found the largest aircraft pallet we could get. We built the biggest box we could build for that aircraft pallet, measured the inside, said, okay, we need a shark this size or smaller, and that's how we geared everything toward the size of the equipment that you see. So there were a lot of intense moments getting the animals out of the sea pen. We had cultural barriers, language barriers, Chinese, Japanese, English, Taiwanese. We had challenges with equipment the first time out. Of course, then there's permitting along the way as far as aircraft takeoff and landing. So there were a number of intense moments along the way.
Yep. Okay, bring it down, bring it down.
One of our biggest concerns in moving the animals was the weight of their body on their cartilaginous skeleton. So the only time that we lifted them out of the water was in Taiwan when we moved them into the transport box.
Down.
Boats, cranes, huge planes and life support systems. Getting these immense animals from Taiwan to Atlanta safely took tremendous ingenuity, a bit of luck, and a lot of very hard work. It was a logistical nightmare, but in the end, it all came together. Remarkably, after nearly 2 days of confinement in small shipping tanks and being transported around the globe, all the whale sharks immediately responded well to their new home. Feeding whale sharks and other residents of the aquarium and keeping them healthy is no ordinary job. Good nutrition is a constant challenge. The food needs to be of the highest quality, restaurant grade in fact. And whale sharks eat a lot of food.
The whale sharks eat about 5 kilos of food a day, and that contains krill, squid, silver sides, and a gel formula.
Fine dining, whale shark style, a la carte. The whale sharks can't be fed together. It would be too chaotic. Each animal instead has its own station. The males are fed from small inflatable dinghies and the females from bridge platforms.
Twice a day, these whale sharks are fed, and we're feeding them a diet fairly similar to what they might get in nature. We know from our research down in Mexico, they're feeding on small shrimps, very small, a couple of millimeters in length. They also feed on copepods and fish eggs. But here at the aquarium, we're also feeding them small fish, small shrimps. And we make a diet that we prepare. We actually add gelatin to it. We grind it all up and make it into a gelatin. We can cut it up in small cubes and add some extra nutrients to that. So twice a day, those animals are fed here at the aquarium. And that was one challenge we weren't quite sure of when we were designing this exhibit. Would they actually feed properly and normally?
Each shark has been conditioned to feed from a different colored bucket at opposite sides of the exhibit. They've been very well trained, but the males and females still need to be separated at feeding time.
We keep the males and the female whale sharks separated during feeding just to really give them more room. They're very large animals, and they do take a bit of space to turn around in order for them to feed. And we don't want them all jumbled up together and banging up each other.
We're one of the
first people in North America to ever have whale sharks. And so some of the research that we're doing and what we're learning from is very new, and we're able to share this data with other facilities in Asia. For example, our team has learned how to routinely give the whale sharks an examination, be able to obtain blood work, and share these techniques that someday may be very applicable to making a difference for wildlife in wild places.
No one likes a needle, whale sharks included. Having the immense animals in an aquarium setting has provided staff with a remarkable opportunity to learn more about the animals. In their state-of-the-art lab, ongoing research with blood and tissue samples help the aquarium piece together clues to whale shark biology and genetics. Much of the research at the Georgia Aquarium is complemented by work done on the open sea. Scientists and tourists travel to tiny Holbox Island to swim with whale sharks. But all is not well in paradise. Holbox is a tiny island northwest of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. Remote and isolated, Holbox Island was once reputed to be a haven for pirates. It became a base for fishermen, and now it's a popular tourist destination. The #1 attraction for visitors, whale sharks. Every summer, nutrient-rich water from the Caribbean Sea flows south across the shallow continental shelf. The currents fuel a massive plankton bloom. Like coral spawning events off Ningaloo Reef in Australia, this feast of zooplankton and fish eggs is a magnet for whale sharks. The sharks attract scientists like Denny Ramirez, a marine biologist from the Biological Research Institute in La Paz, Mexico.
Good morning. Morning. How are you?
The whale sharks also draw tourists, lots of them. Ecotourism has dramatically changed the economy of this tiny island. Fishermen have become tour operators.
This was a village of fishermen, and they would see the whale shark every year. But they never thought it would be something important for them.
The best strategy to find whale sharks: get out on the water early. It can take hours to locate the animals, and there's no aerial spotter planes at Holbox. Rafael de la Parra is the coordinator of the Domino Project, a unique program that partners scientists and tour operators to study the sharks and to regulate tourist activities. And sometimes the best way to find whale sharks is to follow the local tour boats.
They are pretty well organized right now. They will take turns and they will try to not bother the animal. They will wait a little and 3 people in the water at the same time, then they will drift away, then another boat comes and drop his people again, and so on.
Research and tourism go hand in hand at Holbox. Operators let the scientists know where the sharks are and relay basic information, such as the sex and size of the sharks and if they've been tagged. But today, there's only one shark, and that creates a problem. Tour operators take priority, and the researchers must wait for their chance to work on the animal. The standard rule is that tourists go first and scientists go last. Finally, the tour boats are finished for the day. Before the shark has a chance to get away, the researchers spring into action. The first order of business is to implant a yellow ID tag. This is a new shark, one that hasn't been seen or identified before. Denny Ramirez wants to find out how whale sharks from around the world are related genetically, where they're going, and where they're from. To do this, she first needs photos to identify them. Denny and other scientists at Holbox send their photo ID images to Brad Norman's database in Australia. Together, researchers around the world are starting to gather a broader understanding of population numbers and global distribution.
What's the number? The number of the picture is 44 to 60.
To learn more about whale shark genetics, she needs to get a DNA sample. She's an expert freediver, but it's still a challenge to keep up with the big animals. Skillfully, she extracts a tiny piece of flesh with a sharp tool. These small samples are key pieces in a genetic puzzle. Back on the surface, Denny carefully unscrews the sharp spear tip which holds a sample of fatty tissue. The flesh goes into a sterile container filled with alcohol to keep the DNA from breaking down.
Good sample?
Sí, una muy buena muestra.
This sample will join hundreds of others back at her lab in La Paz. The final task is implanting an acoustic locator tag which will allow the researchers to track the shark in local waters. But the tag's tether has to go deeper into muscle tissue to ensure it stays in place. It causes the animal some discomfort, and it leaves the scene quickly. The next morning, Denny Ramirez joins a group of scientists from Mote Marine Laboratory and the Georgia Aquarium. These researchers are at Holbox to gather information about everything from what the animals are eating to local water conditions. It all helps with efforts in Georgia to keep their captive animals healthy and happy in their adopted home.
The work that we're doing here in Holbox complements the work that we do at the aquarium in a lot of ways. So we learn a lot in the aquarium setting, and then we also learn a lot in the field. But standing alone, neither one of those is really the complete picture. We're actually looking at what they're eating and why they're there. And so we do that basically by taking plankton tows at every place where we see animals that are actually foraging. Yesterday and the day before, it was fish eggs. Normally it's different types of zooplankton, suggested shrimp, copepods, amphipods, things like that.
While Denny prepares her equipment, there's time to test water conditions.
Please don't put her in gear. It's a lot colder down toward the bottom. Almost 30 degrees at the surface and 24 degrees down 50 feet down.
Once various studies are completed, the scientists begin searching for sharks. But just like the previous day, the research team has difficulty finding any animals. They have to rely once more on the tour boats. Lured by booming ecotourism, unlicensed and unregulated boats from as far away as Cancun are now crowding an already saturated market.
Whale shark ecotourism has really taken off in the last 5 years. If ecotourism on whale sharks becomes too predominant so that in all areas of the world, boats on virtually every animal, I think that the effect is going to be negative in the long run, and I think that ecotourism is going to end up being overall a negative impact on the whale shark population as a whole. I fear that we're going to drive the sharks away from these important areas where they come to feed.
As the tour boats wind down for the day, it's time for the scientists to get to work.
This is a pop-off satellite archival tag. This tag accumulates information on shark's depth and temperature of the water and the locations of the shark as it migrates. And we insert this dart head underneath the shark's skin, and it rides with the shark then. And then at a preset time, the connection between the tag and the tether releases. In this case, in 90 days, it will come to the surface where it floats and then send all of its data back to us in the laboratory via satellite.
It appears to be another unidentified shark. First, Rafael de la Parra implants an ID tag. The shark now has a number. In just a few short seasons, the team has tagged and identified over 600 animals. Denny quickly gets her DNA sample, and Bob Huter successfully implants the satellite tag. Whether it's Australia or Mexico, whale shark tourism has proven that a live shark is worth more than a dead one. But is this type of tourism harmful to the animals?
The fact that we still don't have a great understanding of the dynamics of their behavior again underscores the importance of us being very careful with this resource and not kill the goose that laid the golden egg. The goose being whale sharks, the golden egg being the economy that it's been driving in terms of ecotourism. We've got to take a very conservative approach in terms of how we allow ecotourism to utilize this resource, just like we would do with fisheries.
Although Holbox Island and other destinations are experiencing some growing pains with ecotourism, there are far greater threats to whale sharks. Since the 19th century, whale sharks have been a target of fishermen in countries like India, China, and the Philippines. In recent decades, the growing popularity of shark fin soup has fueled a terribly destructive fishery. Global demand for the tasteless, dried cartilage of shark fins has helped to wipe out up to 90% of all sharks. And whale sharks have become a prime target. A single fin can be worth a fortune to an impoverished fisherman. But the whale shark's real enemies are the corporations who buy, process, and market the fins. It's a multi-million-dollar industry that knows no borders. In 1997, filmmaker and photojournalist Erin Calmez traveled to the Philippines on assignment. She discovered that whale sharks were being killed for their fins, and the fins were processed for export to Asia. She documented the destructive practices and brought the story to the world's attention in her groundbreaking film, The Whale Shark Hunters. Her work exposed an international trade in shark fins and meat that exploited not only the sharks, but the native fishermen themselves. The dramatic film helped turn the tide on the exploitation of the animals. It is now illegal to kill whale sharks in the Philippines, and other countries like Honduras and Belize soon followed their lead. Instead of killing sharks, fishermen began focusing their efforts on tagging, research, and ecotourism. Mexico outlawed shark finning in 2007, and Taiwan declared that 2008 would be the last year of their commercial whale shark fishery. The future is looking much brighter for whale sharks.
One of my greatest fears, years ago was that we might have been too late to save the whale sharks because their numbers had been declining so dramatically. I was a little pessimistic at the time, but the outstanding response that we've had from many different stakeholders all around the world is giving me confidence that we can be optimistic about the future of this threatened fish. But we need to be on our toes, and we need to continue the hard work we've undertaken.
Every day when we come to the aquarium and we watch people come to this exhibit, we know that most of the people who come here are never going to see the ocean or even see a whale shark in the ocean. The expressions that people show, sometimes tears, when they see the big window here and these amazing fish come swimming by them, we know we've made a connection. And what gives me optimism is that next generation of kids in particular are going to include the future marine biologists who are going to take care of these animals, protect them where necessary to ensure that we have whale sharks and other big fishes in the sea forever.
We're learning more and more about these amazing animals every day and how important they are to the marine ecosystem. Like canaries in a coal mine, they are key indicators of the health of our seas and oceans. And like so many things in this natural world, we are also learning to care about them by getting to know them.
It's difficult to imagine. Some people want to see big sharks in the water, especially photographers. These animals are some of the most iconic photo subjects in the sea. But how do you get close to them? For decades, it's been done with chumming, attracting the sharks with bait. The practice is now being questioned, even banned in many countries, because of a dramatic increase in attacks. White sharks' main food sources, seals and sea lions, are on the move. Global warming and other factors are driving both their prey and the sharks into new territory. And sometimes we're right in their paths. At Mexico's Guadalupe Island, deep water cages provide a fisheye view of great whites. At depth and with minimal baiting, the animals display a surprisingly calm and curious nature. Through satellite and acoustic tagging, researcher Dr. Mauricio Hoyos studies great white migration and behavior. Two other large pelagic sharks, hammerheads and oceanic whitetips, are facing grave declines in their numbers. Like great whites, the fins of these increasingly rare sharks are in high demand for shark fin soup. New international laws now ban commercial trade in these species. But will the measures be effective protection for these endangered animals? In April 2012, a champion South African surfer was killed by a great white. Shark tourism operators and filmmakers were initially blamed. Both groups were chumming in the area at the time of the attack. The baiting of sharks is possibly a factor in some fatalities. But there are other issues to consider, such as the changing migration patterns of their prey species, and there are more of us in the water than ever. There have been more deadly white shark attacks in the past 2 years than in the past 2 decades combined. What's going on?
The thing about shark fatalities is they're spectacular and they command the media. They are going to lead on the front page. If it bleeds, it leads. So what's going on is there are more of us. This is a busy planet. We've passed 7 billion people, and a lot of us like to be in the water. And the fact is that other marine mammals like to be in the water in many of the same places, and they're prey species for large sharks, particularly white sharks. We are recreating in areas where there are big pinniped populations, and people are surfing there, people are diving and snorkeling, free diving, swimming. We're living in the neoprene era now. And when you take a pink ape and you clad them in neoprene and you put them in the water and they're floating on the surface, they look an awful lot like a seal from underneath. So I think a lot of what we're seeing in shark attack, and white shark attack particularly, is mistaken identity.
Dr. Chris Harvey Clark is a shark researcher and the director of animal care at the University of British Columbia. His studies with other large cold water animals such as six-gill and Greenland sharks show they have many similarities to great whites. Most species' behavior, even our own, is primarily driven by the urge to eat. It's all about the food.
Pinniped populations are growing in some areas, and certainly Central California, some of the Pacific Islands, around Australia, around New Zealand, populations are protected, so they're growing. They're outstripping local food resources and moving around, and with them move the large predators. So you may see white sharks occurring in places they haven't been before, and of course these are also places where people in the water, they're surfing, they're snorkeling, and inadvertently being bumped and attacked by white sharks.
The increase in great white attacks is clearly more about more of us being in the water near their prey species. And although the baiting of sharks remains a contentious issue, the practice helps fuel a growing industry, shark tourism.
We just departed Ensenada, Baja California North, heading down to Guadalupe now. Heading south-southwest, 185 nautical miles. Beautiful day today. Hopefully it stays that way. Not always like this.
Historically, there were just a handful of locations where you could regularly see great whites up close. Primarily South Africa, Australia, and California. White sharks, though, are rarely encountered in these places now, or conditions are so challenging, it's nearly impossible to get in the water with them. Mexico's remote Guadalupe Island is the premier destination in the booming business of white shark tourism. And if you're putting people in the water with great whites, you need to protect them.
These cages we have are tough cages. I'd put these cages up against any shark on the planet, and I have no doubt that we would be safe inside there. I'm personally inside the cages every day too, so I wouldn't put our guests in these cages if I didn't think they're safe, so they're extremely tough, yeah.
Although the cages are made of aluminum, they're still incredibly heavy and dangerous to maneuver.
Okay, we'll take the surface cage next, guys.
Even in calm seas, lifting them with a hydraulic crane is a delicate operation.
All right, clear that line, guys. I believe this is our third season now with these submersible cages, and it really offers a different perspective to see a shark swimming above you or even approaching the cage from above.
Watch yourself there, Bob. Swings right at you. Okay, down.
At first light, it's time to deploy the cages.
You're gonna pick it up, you're gonna swing it, and you're gonna lower it right here. You wanna boom down a little bit?
In addition to the two deep units, there are two surface cages.
Ciao, S.A.
It's a full charter, and there are lots of guests. All four cages will be busy.
Pool is almost open.
It's a big job to ensure customers are well equipped and safe. The dive deck is cluttered with dive gear and support crew.
Okay, up slow.
Let's do it.
I've been diving all over the world,
and I am so excited to do this dive. I've done wrecks, I've done reefs, I've done it all. Now I get to do the ultimate, diving with the great white sharks. I am so excited.
Okay, this is the regulator.
What's that?
It is.
A regulator, what's that?
Holy cow.
Guests breathe air through a regulator, much like scuba divers. But instead of using tanks, compressed gas is supplied from the surface. Each diver needs to be heavily weighted to stay firmly at the bottom of the cages.
I've done a lot of diving in Hawaii, French Polynesia, Great Barrier Reef, and on this boat at Socorro. But great white sharks, this is a first.
All right, folks, two-person gauge is ready if you want to start loading up. First dive of the trip.
Rock and roll. Oh, this is nice water.
You want to watch putting your hand right there because it's a pinch point, okay?
Okay, all right.
Bill, there's nobody I would rather take. Straight down. Here's your regulator.
Okay.
When you get down to the bottom of the cage, I'll hand you the camera. Just step away from the ladder, make room for Jan.
Okay.
I've been at this 46 years diving out in the ocean, but I've never, ever seen or dived or even filmed the great white. So I'm ready to go. This is really exciting for me.
And white sharks are dream animals for most photographers. Even though the crew no longer baits with a chum slick or bloody fish parts, the sharks show up soon after the cages are deployed. The big animals seem more relaxed, perhaps even curious at depth. The combination of deeper cages and less baiting seems to be a great success.
Our two submersible cages are a little different from your standard surface cages that most people are familiar with. We lower those down depth of 10 meters. We use hydraulic winches, which are on the stern, and we have a crew member that operate each cage. They're operated from the surface, one crew member lowering them down, lowering them back up again also. They have a lot of backup systems in case of emergency, in case of something happens. They're equipped with ballast tanks, so that if we do need to bring the cage up before the scheduled time, the dive master can blow those ballast tanks with air and the cage will come at a controlled rate up to the surface. If we get cut off from the surface supplied air for some reason, then we have backups. We have scuba tanks down there that we can use to fill the tanks and also to breathe off of. Well, the idea behind the submersible cage is that we get to observe the sharks in their more natural environment, as opposed to the past in the surface cages, where the idea was to be throwing buckets of blood, throwing chunks of tuna and luring them in close to the surface cage. And the behavior you see from the surface cage is that behavior, the sharks agitated, excited from the chumming. The submersible cages, on the other hand, you've got a cage full of people down there, you've got lots of heartbeats, lots of electromagnetic activity. The sharks are attracted to that, but in a different way than they are to the blood. They're not so excited, they're curious, they come cruise around the cages, they're very deliberate in their motions, move very slowly, and you get to see the white shark as they truly are, as opposed to the white shark that's most often portrayed on TV and movies like Jaws.
After a couple of dives, the sharks start to get bolder. They circle tighter and tighter to the cages. For guests, it's what they came for, a thrilling close-up encounter with the infamous great white. The sharks get so close, you could reach out and touch them. But that's not a very good idea.
Oh, that was awesome. There were 3 sharks circling around and circling very slowly, smoothly, but they come in closer, close past there. You can almost reach them with your hands. I didn't try though.
It's my 4th season out here diving with the white sharks, and I've never been sick of it. I don't think I can say I've ever been bored down there. In fact, Every time I'm getting ready to go in, I'm excited to see the sharks again, you know? It's some of my favorite diving to do.
The youngest shark diver was 14-year-old Samantha Morrow. The Canadian teenager logged more dives than most of the guests.
See you later.
Even though the water was a bit chilly, it was challenging to drag many of the guests out of the cages. They couldn't get enough of the enigmatic animals. And divers got a once-in-a-lifetime close-up experience with great whites.
Nowadays, we're not feeding the sharks, we're not wrangling the sharks, and we're not putting heavy slicks of chum in the water to get the sharks to the cages. However, occasionally we do put a hang bait down to put a little scent in the water to bring the sharks in. If we want to show the sharks to these people and educate people about the sharks, then it's something really that I feel that we have to do to bring the sharks to us and keep them there. The current law is that you can't use any tuna, any scent in the water. However, this year, just this season, they have decided to allow you to apply for a permit to use a certain amount of tuna to attract the sharks.
The sharks really do come in close, even with minimal baiting.
Oh my gosh, that was amazing. There's so many close-up sharks. It's probably like 3 or 4.
Congratulations, Sambo. This big shark dive. You made it. You got all your fingers?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all that counts, isn't it?
Woo-hoo! Oh man, that was unbelievable. That's the second dive today, and it was better than the first one.
More sharks, bigger and closer.
They were huge, huge, gorgeous animals.
We should have brought our shark dental floss.
There are some people who feel that any form of baiting should be banned. It's clear, though, the sharks would likely not approach closely without an incentive. A simple hang bait is usually enough to draw the great whites close to the cages. The sharks are intensely curious animals, and even though they're a bit calmer with less baiting, it can still be an unnerving experience. Mauricio Hoyos is fascinated with white sharks. As a university student, he wanted to make the animals the focus of his doctorate. But there were supposedly very few of the animals in Mexican waters.
Mauricio, señores, welcome. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien. ¿Tú? Muy bien, muy bien. Ya le llevo. Ya estás. I spoke with my advisor and I told him I would love to study the white shark. But he told me, Mauricio, we don't have a lot of white sharks in Mexican waters. That was in 2000. And 2 years after that, we found out that we have the best place to see white sharks in the world. And that's why I have been in Guadalupe Island for 9 years, and I would do anything to know more about them and to protect them.
There are no permanent research facilities on the island, so Mauricio teams up with various tour boats as a ship naturalist. He's especially fond of working with children and introducing them to these amazing sharks.
When I was a kid, I remember that we went to the United States and my father gave me $20 and he told me, okay, this is all the money that I'm going to give you. You have to buy a lot of toys or whatever you want. And there was this small shark and it was $20. I bought it because I really wanted it. And my father was really upset because he told me, hey, that's all your money. You have to, you can buy a lot of different toys. No, I want that toy, and I still have it. Because since I was a little kid, I loved sharks. When I saw the first shark, it was like the dream of my life came true. It was amazing. It was a huge female, maybe 4 meters long. And since then, I have been working here on this island every autumn. Guadalupe, it's a very special place because it's an island in the middle of nowhere, and it is influenced by the California current system, that it has a lot of cold water, a lot of nutrients.
Guadalupe's shark numbers appear to be growing. More new sharks means the population is thriving.
There was a study, and they wanted to know the number of sharks that we have year after year, and I think that it is up to 130 sharks. But every year, I have seen new sharks. Most of them are juveniles, and that's very important for Guadalupe Island.
Older established sharks sometimes don't return to the island. They may migrate somewhere else or die off. Seeing new juveniles indicates these animals are being born at Guadalupe or somewhere nearby, which is an encouraging sign.
We have found that the males arrive to the island in July, and females in September, October. They depart the island in February, most of them. But also we have found that some of them remain on the island for up to 10 months, in the case of the juveniles, for example. In Guadalupe, we have 3 different species of pinnipeds: the northern elephant seal, the Guadalupe fork seal, and the California sea lion. And that's one of the preferred prey sources of the white sharks, because they have a lot of fat, and fat has twice caloric value than proteins. So I have seen that in December, when the northern elephant seals are coming to the island to give birth and to mate, the sharks know that and they are waiting for them. But I have seen when they feed on a northern elephant seal and they finish it all. I was there in December and it attacked a female. She was maybe 800 kilograms. And the shark, it was a big female, more than 5 meters. And she killed the seal and she ate everything in front of me in less than 25 minutes.
For a prey animal that's in constant peril, the seals here don't seem to be too concerned, as long as they can see the sharks. And if it gets a bit too scary for the seals, they sometimes even climb on the back of tour boats for protection. To gain a better understanding of the sharks' local movements and their long-distance migrations, Mauricio Hoyos uses high-tech tools such as satellite tags and acoustic transmitters. The devices reveal the shark's depths, migratory patterns, locations, and water temperatures. But even with advanced technology, there's still a lot we don't know about these enigmatic animals.
In order to know the local movements of the sharks, we are using ultrasonic telemetry. We have to set ultrasonic transmitter in a shark, and that transmitter is going to emit a pulse that we can detect in 2 devices. One, that it's a portable receiver that we have in the boat. So as soon as I tag the shark, I have to follow that shark for 24 hours. Okay, Jorge, shark, bring it, bring it. Put it right here, right here. Okay, excellent. We are setting underwater receivers in several different parts of the island, and these receivers can get all the information and storage that information for up to 1 year.
The white sharks at Guadalupe spend over half a year away from the island in open water between California and Hawaii. But what they're doing way out there remains a mystery. A few of the animals have been satellite tracked to a remote location in the middle of the Pacific, dubbed the Great White Cafe. It's thought that thousands of the sharks congregate each year at the mysterious spot. No one is even sure whether they are mating, chasing tuna, or even giving birth out there. For such a remarkably well-known creature, we actually know very little about them. But Mauricio Hoyos is determined to find out more.
Well, the shark is not here. Maybe we can go a little bit to the north. Okay?
Guadalupe is a protected biosphere of Mexico. Yet with minimal funding or monitoring, the sharks are under constant threat from poachers. And there's growing political pressure to restrict the activities of tourism operators. Baiting and chumming of white sharks remains a contentious issue.
If the tourism operators are not allowed to attract the sharks, they won't go to the island again. There's a big problem with poachers. The Mexican Navy is doing a great job, but they cannot be there all the time. So these kind of boats are as extra set of eyes, taking care of the sharks. So I think that we have to find a good way that it's good for the sharks and good for the tourism operators. I mean, not just ban the baiting, but let's do a study to find what would be the best way to attract the sharks without interfering with the natural behavior of the animals.
Stills photographer David Fleetham is just one of a handful of image makers that earn their living taking pictures of marine animals. And one of his favorite subjects is sharks. For most amateurs and professionals, getting the perfect shark picture can be an obsession. His iconic image of a sandbar shark was the first and only underwater photo ever used on the cover of famed Life magazine. Great whites, though, are the holy grail of shark photos.
The first time that I photographed a shark underwater was in British Columbia. It took several trips, but eventually at about 130 feet, I had this 12, maybe 14-foot long, 6-gill shark, huge, girthy shark go swimming by me with really little interest shown in me whatsoever. I was hooked after that on shooting sharks. And then the next shark on the list was, of course, a great white. The great whites that are around Guadalupe Island. That spot has just really developed into what's got to be the best place in the world to photograph great whites underwater.
White sharks are the quintessential marine predator. If anyone who associates danger underwater, they think of this massive white zeppelin-looking shark bristling with teeth coming straight towards them with Jaws music playing. And inevitably, any image that you take of a white shark, people are going to enjoy looking at it.
Photographer Andy Murch is so enamored with sharks, they're the only species he films. His database of shark images is perhaps the most comprehensive in the world.
I started as a diver before I became a photographer. After I really fell in love with the ocean and with sharks, I decided that I wanted to record as many of the animals that I had seen underwater as I could. So I started to build this portfolio of shark and ray images, which was what I was mostly interested in. And after a while, that database grew big enough that I was able to actually start selling the pictures and become a professional photographer. I don't think that my interest in sharks comes from the fact that they're scary or they've got big teeth or anything like that. It's really more of a fascination with how majestic they are, how beautiful they are, how graceful when they swim through the water. They're absolutely stunning animals, and if you catch them with just the right light and on a nice clear day, it's an absolutely magical thing to see underwater. Sharks have a presence, especially if you can make eye contact with a shark. It's very, very engaging. And I think that that same feeling that you get when you're underwater taking photographs of them or shooting video, when that image is presented to somebody above the surface, when they see that, I think that it's very captivating for them too. If you can capture that moment where a shark turns towards you and it's looking at the camera, when the person above water sees that, they're sucked into that image. It's a bit of a fantasy, but my ultimate goal is to try to photograph every species of shark out there. And I'm not just doing this because it would be a fun thing to do or because I have OCD. I think that getting images of all of these sharks will be very useful for conservation purposes in the future. And that's critical to me, that we have those images so that if anybody starts some kind of conservation initiative for a particular species, I'm able to supply an image so that people can really appreciate the animal that we're trying to protect.
And one shark species Andy has taken many photos of, the oceanic whitetip, definitely needs all the help it can get. To dive with and photograph the elusive oceanic whitetip, shark advocate Stuart Cove and his crew traveled to waters off Cat Island in the central Bahamas. Like great whites, oceanic whitetips need a little incentive to approach the dive boat.
You got it, man.
This is the bit no one sees and no one wants to do. I don't mind it. This is what our little darlings like to eat, so gotta give it to them. Alright.
Come here, little puppy.
Just for you, Ted.
So this is our oceanic whitetip, the first one to show up. Got a beautiful day.
Stuart is perhaps tempting fate a bit, but he's got lots of experience with these sharks.
I think we can go in. It won't take long for his friends to come.
Baiting and chumming is a controversial practice with all sharks. But the fact remains that the only way to entice the animals is with bait.
What are you doing? I'm just having some fun.
Stuart Cove's business revolves around shark tourism, and if you're paying to see an animal in the wild, you want to get as close as possible. Wrangling sharks with a baited line is one surefire way to excite the sharks. Oceanic whitetips do have a bit of a reputation. They've been implicated in numerous shark attack fatalities, especially with shipwreck survivors in the open ocean. But they have a lot more to fear from us. When these increasingly rare sharks are encountered, they're very small. The few oceanics that remain are a fraction of the size of their historic counterparts.
Oceanic whitetip sharks have pretty much become the poster shark for shark conservation now. Their numbers were depleted so much in the Gulf of Mexico, and it was recorded that there was only 2% left of the initial population. So because of this, they became effectively the mascot for shark conservation. And this is very important because we need those species that we can illustrate how bad it's got. Oceanic whitetip sharks are open ocean predators, so unlike most sharks that hang out on different reefs, they rarely come in contact with land whatsoever. They're out chasing tuna or various other migrating species in the very, very deep ocean, far, far from land. And because of this, they've come in contact with unregulated finning in many parts of the world where there's no monitoring. There's no way to protect them because past international limits, fishermen can do more or less anything they want.
Oceanic whitetip shark, this is a beautiful shark. Carcharinus longimanus being the long, beautiful pectoral fins these sharks have. A really interesting shark because when you see them underwater, you usually often don't see the shark. You see little white flashing shadows off in the distance. And these shadows, it's thought, are actually mimicking the movement of prey fish species. They look a little bit like a far-off glimpse of some silvery fish off in the distance. And it's thought that this may actually provide other prey species that these whitetips are taking with a little bit of assurance. Oh, it's just a school of fish out there, and then bam, oceanic comes in and hits you. What's happened to oceanic whitetips is that we've seen a century of industrial fishing in the Atlantic, and particularly longline fishing, and it's taken them out. Their population has declined 98 or 99%. They were once the most prolific shark in the Atlantic, even more so than the blue shark, which is astounding because of the biomass of blues.
One of the most enigmatic sharks is the great hammerhead. These rare creatures are certainly an unusual shark. Massive animals, their distinctively shaped head separates them from more typical species. And no sharks have more desirable or valuable fins. One of the most consistent places to find hammerheads is the tiny island of Bimini in the northern Bahamas.
You know, great hammerhead, you can sometimes have a lucky opportunity to see them, but this here in South Bimini is guaranteed hammerhead action. We're less than a mile offshore, 20 feet of water. So the sharks come very close to to South Bimini. And it's great because it's only a 5-minute boat ride to the site.
Like oceanic whitetips and white sharks, hammerheads need a bit of incentive to approach divers.
We grabbed a huge bag of just some local Bahamian fish, grunts, schoolmasters, little barjacks. I'm just cutting it all up into pieces. I'm going to put it in a bucket with some oil and some salt water, mash it all up, and then when the sharks come, we put it in the water, and it's an attraction scent, so we like to call it our shark soup.
The question remains, though, does baiting adversely affect the natural behavior of the sharks? Most large sharks are attracted to handouts of food. Even just the scent of fish blood in the water can usually bring them into close contact. But does it make them more dangerous?
It's just an awesome experience to see these huge animals swimming right up to you and around you. Fantastic. The way I feel about these hammerheads, I've dived with a lot of species of sharks here in the Bahamas, but this great hammerhead is probably the highlight of all the sharks. They're huge, 15 feet long, with heads 3 feet wide and 6-foot high dorsal fins, and they stay with us, and they swim right around us very closely. The water is crystal clear here in Bimini and only about 20 feet deep, so you can have an hour-plus dive. They're gentle giants. I don't feel at all intimidated by the sharks. Very comfortable. I don't feel they would bite you. They're not interested in us. At one point I was holding a fish and it came after the fish. I put it behind my back. It went around me to my back. I moved it back to the front. It came around to the front. It wasn't interested in biting me. It was just interested in the fish.
Even though hammerheads have been proven to be relatively shy and non-threatening animals, there's still that nasty reputation to deal with. Old perceptions die hard. Introducing them to scuba divers might help to change our views.
This is such a unique experience here in South Bimini with these great hammerheads. I would like to introduce more and more people to it, particularly photographers. It's such a great opportunity to get incredible images of these huge sharks.
Photographers are definitely fond of hammerheads. They are a very distinct and unusual species.
Depending who you talk to, there's either 9 or 10 species of hammerhead sharks in the world now. And by far the most iconic and impressive is the great hammerhead, which can grow to extremely large proportions and is very, very angular. It has this huge, long witch's hat dorsal fin. It's just a very spiky shark when you see it in images. And I think that that's very captivating for a lot of people.
In the Bahamas and much of the Caribbean, hammerheads have long been viewed as man-eaters. Although they have attacked humans in the past, it's been decades since one of the animals was involved in a fatality.
You need to turn people onto it so they can get the word out that these great hammerheads aren't this indiscriminate killer. Because you think of great hammerhead and you think, oh my God, I gotta get out the water, they're gonna eat me.
One of the hardest groups to convince that hammerheads pose a minimal threat are fishermen.
You know, just yesterday we were in Bimini Harbor trying to get some carcasses to feed the sharks. And this very nice gentleman kindly gave us his carcasses. Couldn't believe we were diving with these great hammerheads. And he was bragging about how many great hammerheads he's killed over the years. strictly for trophies. His understanding was they were terrible killers and they needed to be killed. But we've changed his mind. He won't be killing any more great hammerhead sharks. And the more people we can bring down here and show them how gentle these guys are, the more the word's going to get out and we can make a difference in this endangered species.
Open ocean wanderers, great whites, and other large pelagic species are critically endangered over much of their historic ranges. White sharks are now protected in most countries. Other species, however, are not. Oceanic white-tip numbers have dropped globally by more than 90%. Hammerheads are targeted relentlessly. It doesn't help that their dorsal and pectoral fins are very large and valuable. Big sharks have big fins, and as most sharks are scavengers, they easily fall prey to baited long-line hooks.
We have a century now of massive industrial fishing that's gone on in the open seas, virtually unregulated, to the point where most of their populations are severely threatened. They're 85–90% gone. We have pounded sharks mercilessly. This is the end of the end. So we've had a century of bycatch, we've had directed fisheries, and now with the value of these fins anywhere from $80 to $160 a kilo, we're now with the last of the buffaloes 150 years ago in the ocean. We are now seeing the last of these magnificent pelagic sharks being taken for their fin value.
For decades, conservation groups and researchers have been raising the alarm over the wasteful practice of shark finning. We've been killing tens of millions of the animals without careful consideration of their important role in the marine ecosystem. It finally appears, though, that some of us may be getting the message. CITES, or the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, has just won a major battle in shark conservation.
This year, 5 new shark species were added to the CITES appendices, which is fantastic news for sharks. We managed to get 3 species of hammerheads, great hammers, smooth hammers, and scalloped hammers protected, as well as porbeagle sharks, which are related to great whites, and oceanic whitetip. This is a very good start. Of course, it doesn't protect them completely because all it does is stop international trade. But it doesn't mean that those sharks can't be fished out on a domestic basis.
This is all shark. Angel, mako, casson is other species, probably hammer. That's probably hammer.
Finally, somebody has actually set the bar somewhere. We know the CITES process has its flaws, but at least we've got a starting point for the protection of oceanic pelagic sharks. The celebratory food of a culture is a big deal. You're talking about North American culture. Our Christmas turkey is a big deal. Most people don't want to give up their Christmas turkey. In Asian culture, the celebratory value of shark fin soup at, for instance, wedding banquets is huge. The fact is there's a big prestige factor associated with the eating of this product, and that's what we really have to shift, I think.
Very characteristic. We saw this shark within 50 meters of the same site 3 years running.
About 40% of the countries which are taking sharks have absolutely no management plans for any of the sharks they take. They just take and take. There's no allowable catch, there's no limit. You just go out and fish.
Even though oceanic whitetips and hammerheads are now protected, on paper, will the new laws have teeth?
The real problem with CITES is it's kind of a coalition of the willing. So if you decide to opt out of CITES, there are no penalties. So really, where shark protection is concerned, it then goes on to the larger scale of how nations interact and things like trade treaties and so on. Would anybody in the Western world, for instance, step up at an international trade conference and say, we're not going to trade with this country that's overexploiting sharks? Would that happen? Perhaps it should.
there's still a long ways to go to bring many species of sharks back from the brink of extinction. Regardless of their effectiveness, the new CITES rules are a big first step in shark conservation.